There are many stakeholders in any conversation about education: parents, teachers, policymakers. But perhaps the biggest stakeholders of all are the ones it's supposed to be all about: the students. And who better to represent their voices than their fellow students? Kayvon Mihan is president of the Ontario Student Trustees Association and a trustee with the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board. And he's here to tell us about giving students a voice. Kayvon, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Can we do a little bit basic bio just as we get off the top here?
For sure.
You live in Ottawa, I presume?
Yes.
How old are you?
17 years old.
And what grade are you in?
Grade 12.
What school do you go to?
I go to A.Y. Jackson Secondary School.
A.Y. Jackson, okay. You know who A.Y. Jackson was?
Yeah, he was a painter in the group of 7.
I'm very impressed. Good for you. And plans for next year yet? You got that figured out?
Well, right now I'm still making a decision, but I'm leaning towards Queen's University for Commerce.
Good idea. Got to get out of Dodge, right? That's the idea. You got to leave home. Okay. Why did you make the decision that being a student trustee was something worth your time?
Well, since I was in about grade 7 or 8, I've been involved in school events, and in grade 9 and 10, I represented my class in their Students' Council. Moving forward from that, I learned that I could represent student voice on a greater level, and I was always really passionate about making sure that students have been heard in decisions affecting their education, as all student trustees really are. So I went into the election day with the experience of being just on a Students' Council, and then from there, I just decided I would run on the platform of making sure students had a voice that they could see and that there would be tangible change made.
A voice heard by whom?
A voice heard by board level officials, so senior staff, director of education, and trustees.
Now the trustees, you'll forgive me putting it this way, the adult trustees
Yes.
have to get elected, right?
Yes.
You too?
Yes, so student trustees are elected by a number of different ways across the province. The election process isn't standardized, so each board can tailor it best to their demographics, their sizes, and how the students get involved at the board level. So in my board in particular, we have a student senate and a student president's council. So the presidents of Students' Council, and then one elected representative from each school. And the incumbent Senate and presidents elect a group of elected senators for the next year, and they elect the student trustees that way.
So you are not elected by this sort of student body at large. You're picked by a narrower group, is that right?
Yes, it's an indirect vote.
Indirect vote, okay. And what's your job?
So my job is to give a student's perspective on decisions being made at the board level. A lot of times in the hustle and bustle of things in the boardroom, sometimes we can forget how a decision may be affected in schools. And I really see students as the boots on the ground in the schools. So my job is to make sure I can envision and speak, as a student, how is this change going to be affecting all of us at large in our schools? And,
so you go to the board
district.
meetings?
Absolutely.
Do you get a vote?
No.
You don't get to vote?
No, we don't have a binding vote in any respects. We are entitled to a recorded vote. So permitting in the bylaws, student trustees are able to request a recorded vote being taken so they can count us in when they vote, but it's not binding in any manner, so it won't change the outcome.
Does that tick you off?
No, I would say I would prefer that voice would be taken as more than just a token. I think the trustees do a great job across the province of listening to students and caring about students. They're all there to do the right thing for education, and the best way they do that is by listening to students. So it would be very nice to have a vote, and in the past, the Ontario Student Trustees Association has advocated for a binding vote, and I think that's something we're always going to continue to work towards. So we do our best to participate in the manner that we can right now, and we'll continue working forward to that.
Can you give me an example where the board was meeting and the trustees were sort of all lining up in one direction, and then you got up and you gave a speech laying out what you saw as the facts and what the student voice would be on the issue, and as you looked around the room, some of the minds started to change and you may have swayed a policy direction to go in the other way?
Well, I'm in no respects a mind reader, but what I can tell from what happened in one of my boardrooms, one of my board meetings, was there was a debate on our suspension policy, and a trustee had amended to strike out dress code as a reason to suspend in this board. So that passed at a committee meeting, and then when we took it to board to finally approve it, someone had amended to reinsert the dress code. So I spoke back up at that meeting.
Can I just understand that?
Yes.
That means somebody could have been suspended at one of the schools in the Ottawa-Carleton board if what they were wearing didn't meet a certain
yes,
code?
And if it didn't meet the dress code, the policy did state that. It was a lighter kind of deal. It was something that was mainly unheard of in the board. So they did a great job of making sure that wasn't used unless it was a really dire circumstance. So when they were striking it out, I made sure I spoke up just about how students feel about a dress code and how someone dresses should not be how they their education, it should not affect their education.
Gotcha. Now, do the students know that you went to bat for them?
I did the best that I could to let people know. Through the Student Senate, my co-trustee and I at the time were able to disseminate the information to all the representatives from schools, and from that point it would be the responsibility of the senators to tell their councils and then back down to the students.
Got it. Once you've been in this job, is there something that's happened along the way that was completely unexpected for you?
I would say one thing that changed was my perspective on how decisions are made in the education system. I always thought, the people who are up there didn't listen to students, right? That there was always some sort of agenda that was being pushed. But as I progressed through my time, I began to learn and understand how decisions are made, why decisions are made. I learned about the Education Act, I learned about the ministry level, and that senior staff have to pass things through the Board of Trustees in order for it to become part of the education system. So throughout this process, I think it really opened my eyes and made the process more transparent.
A great civics lesson in some respects.
Absolutely. I've said this in a panel address I made at a conference, that the best civics lesson I've ever earned was the one on this job.
Does it make you think sometime in the future you'd like to do this quote unquote for real?
Well, we'll have to see when the day comes. I can't make any promises today. It really depends on where my heart lies at the time.
I'm not trying to get you to commit today to running for office at some point, but I just, some people in their teenage years, I know lots of them who have already decided they know they're going to run for trustee or city council or, Queen's Park or Parliament someday.
Right.
Are you there yet?
We'll see.
How about this? Do you ever sit around that table and think to yourself, they're not really listening to me, they're just humoring me, they're just patronizing me, my voice really isn't carrying the weight that I wish it were?
I think all student trustees can relate to this in some respects. It is difficult being, sometimes half the age or, more than that of all the other trustees. So speaking up in an environment with people who have had significantly more education than you and more experience can be a little bit daunting. But I think there is always going to be, quite a few people in the room who will listen. The Premier said this as well when during her time as a trustee, she said this to our organization when we were at Queen's Park, that whenever a student trustee would speak up, everyone in the room would turn their heads and listen. Because it's a completely different perspective that you get. When you have your different council representatives, your trustees, and senior staff speak, it's all from those different points of view. But at the end of the day, the decisions that get made all go back down to the schools and are affecting students in one way or another. So I think they do a great job of opening their ears and listening. They certainly hear us, and listening is based upon whether or not what we're suggesting can be feasible.
So you do get the sense that they respect and listen when you talk.
Absolutely.
You don't see everybody chatting or on their Blackberries or something like that when you're up addressing something.
No.
Okay, good to know. Would you like to hear the student voice included more in discussions around education? And by that I mean, you're making your contribution at the Board of Education level, but I'm guessing someday you'd like to come in and address the Cabinet of Ontario, for example, on something. Is that something you enjoy doing?
Absolutely. That would be something that we would certainly look forward to doing. And throughout the year, actually, we've had some opportunities like that. In November, we've met with Minister of Education, Mitzi Hunter. We had the chance to sit down with a small delegation. We also had a chance to meet with Minister of Labour, Kayvon Mihan, and the Minister of Advanced Education, Deb Matthews, to discuss the role of not only student trustees in advocating for education and better work for students, but also being able to advocate for youth involvement in politics. So we've been able to get these opportunities here and there to have these discussions, be it on education, be it on OSAP, be it on the gender wage gap, giving a youth perspective overall on these types of issues.
How do you think Minister Hunter is doing so far?
I think she's done a great job. You can really see the passion in her eyes as she's trying, and she really does put the effort forward to listen to stakeholders and to listen to students especially. How
about the Kathleen Wynne government in general? How do you think they're doing?
I think they've overall done a great job. Kathleen Wynne was a Minister of Education herself, the first one, I believe, to have had the Minister's Student Advisory Council. So you can see from that point they did value student voice for a very long time. And they've come into our organization before to speak and meet with us. Minister Sandals did as well before Minister Hunter. So I think so far they've done a great job of listening to us. The new sexual education curriculum is something that we were advocating for, and we were quoted in news sources such as the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail, where they noted that one of our surveys, the Ontario Students, Parents and Educators survey, noted that 82% of students had hoped for a more diversified sexual education curriculum, a progressive program that the Kathleen Wynne government later, a few years down the road, put in a very highly discussed one.
Is that public board only, or is that public and Catholic with the 82% approval rating?
That was a public and Catholic. It was a province-wide survey.
Huh. Both together. Have you noticed, we obviously, what is it, 95% of the young people in this province are educated in the public school system, either the public secular system or the publicly funded Catholic school system. There are still some tensions, you know, between the public and the Catholic school system. Do you notice them in your job?
I would say not so much. I think what's really great about our organization is that we're able to work with public and Catholic students. So the Ontario Student Trustees Association is combined into the Public Board Council and the Catholic Board Council. So we have Catholic Board Student Trustees and Public Board Student Trustees. This allows us to come together, work with each other, learn from each other, and bounce ideas off of each other. Because sometimes, and I'll give an example of myself, you can be really sheltered within your own board. Discussions we would always have in classes is whether or not we should have school uniforms. And, you know, from a public board, you look at that and you don't really think about school uniforms really being a thing. And
then the Catholic board has them, right?
The Catholic board has them, and I didn't learn that until I started meeting more Catholic board students, because in the Ottawa-Carleton School Board, they didn't have uniforms either. So it was something I had never experienced before. So we're able to come together as a whole body of students where we're very strong and very united, and at the same time break off into public and Catholic to focus on specific issues to our systems.
Do you have a view as to whether public school students should have to wear a uniform?
I think everything's working fine just now. I think everything's working out just fine.
Leave it as is.
Leave it as is. It's about how they're learning, and everyone seems to be learning pretty well.
What if somebody did something terrible, though, like showing up for school wearing an Ottawa Senators jersey? I mean, don't you think that's really beyond the pale?
Well, I think it's a lot better than showing up wearing a Toronto Maple Leafs
jersey. Oh,
jersey.
Wow, Kayvon, you hit me where I live there. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Let me ask you a bit of a controversial question here, okay? You know that for a long time there have been calls for, if you like, unifying the governance system of the public and the Catholic schools. You know, I mean, right now we've got K-12 publicly funded secular system, K-12 publicly funded Catholic school system. And a lot of people think we should just merge it all together in one unified school system. What's your thought on that?
Well, Ontario has one of the best education systems in the world. We have our 4 different systems, and I would like to focus on how we can bring students' voice up to the forefront in the current systems we have.
We should just explain. 4 systems you said we have.
Yeah.
English, French, public, Catholic.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So just like that. So the way it stands right now, students are learning, and students are learning in different ways. This allows us to have more than just a unilateral way of teaching. You have a diversified group of graduates, and I think it would be incredibly difficult undertaking for the ministry and boards to bring this together. And what I do fear is that you would perhaps be sacrificing the education of a certain cohort through financial struggles while trying to go through this amalgamation process. I mean, you saw that in the amalgamation of the Toronto District School Board. You saw that in the amalgamation of municipalities in the 90s. It's something, you know, it's not guaranteed savings. And one thing we want to make sure is that we respect the current systems that we have and that students are learning well.
So you like it the way it is?
I think so, yes.
Kayvon, I have to say, you're extremely well-spoken, and if you ever do decide on a career in politics, my bet is you're going to go far. So
thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for coming into TVO tonight and letting us know what a student trustee does. That's Kayvon Mihan. He is the president of the Ontario Student Trustees Association. Thanks, Kayvon.
Thank you very much.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit tvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.